Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this very important event. I'm Darrell Steinberg, and I have the privilege of representing the 6th Senate District in California, including McClatchy High School here. Very proud to represent McClatchy. All right. I am joined today by the President Pro Tem of the California State Senate, Don Parada. Please welcome Senator Parada. I'm also joined by the chair of the Senate Education Committee, Senator Jack Scott. Senator Scott, thank you for being here. I am joined by one of the top education leaders in the state, Senator Tom Torlakson. Senator Torlakson. We're joined by Dave Gordon, who's the superintendent of the County Board of Education and a statewide education leader. Thank you, Dave. We are joined by Ellen Wong, who's one of the best darn teachers at McClatchy and in the whole county. And we're joined by Cynthia Clark, the principal of McClatchy High School. Cynthia, thank you for being here. And Don McCarran from the California School Employees Association. You're going to hear from Senator Prada, the other senators, and my colleagues in just a few minutes. But let me, if I may, kick this off. We all know we are in a very difficult budget year. The governor has proposed $4.8 billion in education cuts across the state. These proposed cuts could not come at a worse time for our state, our schools, or our students. The young people standing behind us, and we always use the cliche, kids are our future. Are we going to live up to it? Because these kids did not create the problem we find ourselves in, and yet they and the students who come after them will pay for it if we don't make the right decisions. What are the local ramifications of a $4.8 billion statewide cut to education? In less than 2 weeks, teachers here at McClatchy High School and at other schools all over the state will receive pink slips. Sacramento County schools will have to swallow a total of $85 million in cuts. Over 600 Sacramento County school employees will be laid off. Art classes, music classes, PE, and early start programs will be discontinued. Local school districts may have to even kill off necessary class size reduction plans, meaning more kids to a teacher than we currently have now. None of us here, led by our President, Senator Parada, will suggest or say that there aren't hard budget choices to be made this year. But if we follow the draconian nature of the governor's proposal, we will only dig ourselves a bigger hole to climb out of when the economy recovers here in California, and it is time to invest. Instead, when that time comes, we will maybe, if we're lucky, be in a position to rehire the teachers and employees we just laid off and add back the programs we just slashed. 2 steps backward and maybe 1 step forward. It's the kids who will suffer. It is the economy of California that will suffer if we don't make education the cornerstone of our economic development policies here in California. It's very simple. Investing in kids is investing in the future. Let me now introduce and turn program for some brief comments over to the chair of our Senate Education Committee, Senator Jack Scott.
I simply want to underline the eloquence of Senator Steinberg and point out the importance of schools. Classrooms come first. And I think when you look into the face of those young people that are behind you, we don't want to in any way cut short their education, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So we lay off teachers. So maybe some of them come back one day. But what kind of message do we send to university students who are thinking about going into the teaching profession? How many of them will instead say, you know, I ought to go into a profession where my efforts are rewarded? The quality of education is dependent upon the quality of teachers. And for us to disrespect teachers in this way is really reprehensible. You say, well, we've got to make cuts, and yes, we do have to make cuts. But I go back to another time when there was a Republican governor by the name of Wilson. He was facing a $14 billion shortfall, and he decided that the way to approach it was both by cuts and by increasing revenues. And so we've got to look at some other solutions to this very, very difficult problem. I'm willing to sit down and look at ways in which we maybe will delay the start of certain programs. We maybe can discover some surpluses and do some other things. But folks, we're not anymore into making minor cuts. We're looking at what will impact the classroom. If the governor's proposed budget goes through, that will mean $800 less per student than what would have been required under Prop 98. Now let's just simply do a little multiplication. A school with 500 students will have to cut their budget by $400,000. Imagine what that will do, and I can tell you as someone who spent his life in education that 85 to 90% of all education expenditures has to do with personnel. So are we going to sweep the floors a lot less, increase our classrooms, cut out athletics, cut out art, music? What are we going to do? Those are the kind of hard choices. And we're doing it on the backs of our children. And we shouldn't do that as responsible citizens. So I come before you today saying, indeed, classrooms do come first. I've spent my life in education. I revere what it does for our children and for our economy. And therefore, I speak in unison with Senator Steinberg, my other colleagues, and great teachers here at McClatchy High School in saying, let's look at another solution.
Thank you. I also want to welcome and introduce the president of the Sacramento City Teachers Association, Linda Tuttle. Linda, thank you for coming. Appreciate it very much and for being here in support. Please welcome Senator Tom Torlakson. Senator Torlakson.
I've been a classroom teacher. Our leader in the Senate, Don Parada, was a classroom teacher back in the 70s when we were ranked top in the nation in performance, top in what we did in quality education, and we were top in funding. It's a tragedy. It's a travesty that we've slipped to 46th in the nation in per pupil spending, and in many respects some of our performance is down with Mississippi and Alabama. It is not a time to divest and retreat. It is a time to add more money, to invest more in education. These cuts are totally illogical. In fact, they are insane in terms of what they would do to California. To the bright young people with their aspirations and dreams, we should be fostering those dreams, building those opportunities, building those dreams, not dismantling programs, not destroying the dreams. So these are cuts the governor proposes that would not heal. They would last a lifetime. We must resist them. We must unite to find the ways to balance the budget. Californians today are paying about $11 billion less in taxes than we did 11 years ago. We need to invest. We need to advance, not retreat. Thank you.
Thank you. Please welcome the man leading the charge for education, the president of the California State Senate, Senator Don Parada.
Thank you. Before I begin, is the choir going to sing now? I'll tell you, if my students were as good as these were, I'd still be teaching. The real issue is going to be this summer whether or not the legislature, particularly the Senate, will pass a budget that does damage to education. And the answer is no, we won't. We are going to be here as long as we have to be until we have a budget that gives education, classroom teaching, the priority it deserves. As Darrell said, We didn't get into this trouble because of our children. It is trouble for our children. If adults are not willing to do whatever is necessary to make sure that the generation to come has at least as good or better opportunities than we had as we were growing up, then shame on us. And I believe the governor is selling Californians short. The idea he talks about that we have a revenue problem, a spending problem, not a revenue problem, is wrong-headed. It is just flat wrong. Now, maybe he spent too much time in a place where everything is kind of like make-believe. But down here, where education is taking place, you ask anyone if we have a spending problem. You ask any student who has been here for 4 years, is the fourth year better than the first? Have we overspent on your education at McClatchy High School? So what the governor's got to do is be the leader of this state, to go throughout the state of California and challenge this state to be excellent. We have a budget proposed by the governor that is at best mediocre. At best. We are now in the position where California will become a second-class state. We ballyhoo that we have the 5th, 6th, or 7th largest economy in the world. And we have a second-rate education system. How long are we going to be able to say we have that kind of an economy? How long before most of the engineers and the technicians needed to drive the high-tech industry and the biotech industries of this state are going to have to come from another continent because we are not producing enough ourselves? Where will the middle class live? It cannot afford to live in California. The only reason you're going to struggle to make ends meet if you're a father or a mother is for your kids. But we already are paying exorbitantly high prices for housing, and we're paying high costs for gasoline. How can people be expected to pay any more? Simple. It's for their children. The same reason that any parent would lay his or her life down for their children is why we have to pay more. We do not have a spending problem. We don't have enough money. And we are going to have more money, even on a temporary basis. Because once we break this, we'll never fix it. Ever. And as Jack said, why would a young person in college right now say, I want to make a career in teaching, when the first 5 or 6 years you may get pink slipped every year? Why would anybody go into that kind of a profession? I'll tell you, I entered into the classroom in 1967, and I loved every minute of the 16 years I was there. But honestly, if that was the attraction today that I'm being offered, I don't know that I've done the same thing. So there's a lot at stake here. But these kids didn't start the problem. They didn't create the problem. They're trying to live with the problem. And adults in this state have to be challenged that it is necessary. So we're going to go all over California and ask the governor to stand up, to use his celebrity, to use his fame, to say that California is going to be great once again, and it's going to begin with our education. Thank you.
That pretty much says it all. But let's also hear from some of the people here who are working day to day to help educate kids. We have with us Ellen Wong, who, as I said earlier, is a great teacher. Ellen, come on up. I want to thank all the teachers at McClatchy and the parent educators and all the classified staff. Ellen, come on up.
I must be one of those insane people, because I did go into teaching and got pink slipped 3 or 4 times and stuck right with it. But I have to agree that it's not a real attractive thing to do. But it's great to be here, and I love the profession, and these are my kids. And I think that it's important to say right off the bat that we understand that there's no easy answers when a state with great expectations has to meet those expectations with diminished resources. The long view, as Senator Parada and others have said, dictates that education of its citizens is the soundest investment in the state's future and honestly the only long-term solution to our economic challenges. Public schools are in the business of nation building. That's how I've always felt about the profession. This is where the real world comes together, where students learn to be citizens of the state and of the nation, and where they acquire skills to contribute to the state and the nation when they leave here. I've been teaching at McClatchy for 20 years, and I see that the kinds of cuts that seem the easiest to make at the school level often have the most devastating effects. Cuts made to music and art and athletics. All the evidence shows that student participation in those kinds of activities has a very strong correlation to graduation. Those are not luxuries, those things that we offer students besides, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Reasonable class size, quality textbooks, instructional materials, updated technology are all essential to high-quality schools. Cutting offerings, cutting staffing, waiting years to replace books, all of those things sell our kids short. Something I suspect the governor would never tolerate for his own kids. I suspect the same is true for a lot of legislators. The schools serving students with the greatest needs are going to be hit the hardest by these cuts. There's no question. There's an entire population of students with families who will not be able to cover the state's spending gap out of their pockets. Quality education is a civil right, and it should be treated as such. The taxpayers know that there are no easy answers. The governor and the legislature know that the draconian cuts that Senator Steinberg just mentioned are expedient, but they're foolish. Where's the vision for a future for all of California's kids, the kind of future available to the children of our elected officials? Teachers need the governor, the legislature, and the taxpayers of California to think beyond the election cycle, bite the bullet, and make schools and students a priority so that this place we call the Golden State can truly be golden. The bottom line is that you get what you pay for, and it's time for California to commit to world-class schools and then pay for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen, for your eloquence. Welcome Dave Gordon, please, the Sacramento County Superintendent of Schools. Dave?
Thank you, Senator Steinberg. I first want to thank our leaders from the Senate for coming out today, our teacher leaders, McClatchy, for hosting. And I think you can see from this turnout here, we're all in this together. We're going to say no to these draconian budget cuts. Mrs. Wong here taught both my children here at McClatchy High School. My daughter was a first-year student in the HIS program the first year Mrs. Wong came to teach. And I can tell you both my kids got a fabulous education here at McClatchy. And just look behind me, this is what's at stake. This school has sent literally thousands of kids to top-tier colleges, the UCs, schools back east, the Ivy League. That's what's at stake. We've got to be able to keep doing that. Let me mention some of the impacts on the other districts in our county. Folsom Cordova might have to cut 156 teachers, raise class sizes. San Juan is considering laying off 126 teachers and about 19 other staff, reducing athletic programs, by the way, which keep our at-risk kids involved in positive activities, by 1/4 and holding off on replacing aging school buses. In the Elk Grove district I formerly led, a $25 million shortfall. They might be forced to cut high school class size reduction and raise class sizes at kindergarten, and let me tell you what that means. My youngest granddaughter, Emma, is scheduled to enter kindergarten in the Elk Grove district next fall. She and her incoming classmates will be at a great disadvantage because they are proposing to raise class sizes from 20 to 33. 20 to 33. Her older sisters had a superb kindergarten teacher. She will probably be moved out because of staffing layoffs and movements to other schools. People's lives will be disrupted, but most of all, Emma will not have the great life and start that her sisters got. And that's what's at stake here, and that's why we all have to rally together and say, as Senator Parada did, find another way to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Last but not least, and then we'll be happy to answer questions, Don McCarron from the California School Employees Association. Don, please.
As we said earlier, our students did not ask for these cuts, and they did not cause the budget situation. California has dropped from 43rd to 46th in the nation in per pupil spending. This means that that's roughly $1,900 less per student that we spend than the national average. States such as New York spend as much as 75% more on per student costs. Public education is the great equalizer. It provides an even playing field, and for the land of opportunity, it's the key to our success as a state and as a nation. Nearly 20 years ago, the voters of this state overwhelmingly passed Proposition 98 to ensure a basic bare minimum of funding for education, and they reaffirmed that commitment in 2005 in the special election. Any proposal to suspend Proposition 98 undermines the will of the voters to fund our schools. The legislature should pass a balanced budget that makes education funding and investing in California's future a priority. Anything less is unacceptable. Thank you.
Last but not least, Linda Tuttle from the City Teachers Association.
I want to remind you that education since the beginning of a civilized society has been the cornerstone in any great democracy. We cannot allow our education, our cornerstone, to be tilted out of place, because we all know then everything crumbles. We must support funding for public education. We've got to make California once again stand up, be all it can be. We have the leadership. We just need to take and have the will of the masses. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks to everyone, and I've never been more proud to be a teacher and be part of education. So thank you all for that. Questions?
Senator, last week the governor said he would be willing to eliminate $2.5 billion of tax breaks and give that money to education. Is that enough? How much in new revenue does your caucus want to raise?
Well, it's not enough. I mean, if he's going to cut $5 billion, he's only halfway there. We're looking at everything, including the tax breaks. The governor recanted about a day later, however. I want to make this a balanced comment. So I don't think he's there yet. He got snapped at by the Republicans, and so he sort of moved back to the right corner. But we'll look at everything. But what we want is that we want to fund education consistent with the need. And the first thing we've got to do, and my friend Tom McClintock keeps this one thing he's right about, when you're in a hole, you got to stop digging. That's the only way you ever get out. And the problem right now is we're in a deep hole. So I will settle for just getting to be eye level with the street.
Education takes up about 2/5 of the state budget. Is it your position there should be any more cuts to the overall budget?
Say what?
Should there not be any more cuts to schools?
That's my position, yes.
How are you going to do that and still balance?
Raise taxes. That clear enough? Raise taxes. And no one's going to tell me that with what's at stake, that the average Californian would not be willing to pay pennies on the dollar more for an educational system here that is worth what we believe California is about, why we live here. Let's face it, we're sending more people to prison now and paying $60,000 a year or whatever, some godly thing, because we don't have enough opportunities for kids when they're younger. We're backwards. And it's not going to get any better if we keep doing this. So I don't care whether it's, a temporary tax increase, a long-term tax increase, but the longer we stop talking about the need to have more revenues and say that that's a nice antiseptic phrase for raising taxes, the longer we're going to be here. And I'll tell you, we're not going home. We're staying here. We're committed. We are not, if the Republicans could hang out last year for 30 days to undo the state budget, to make it worse, in my view, not better, we will do no less to make sure that we're going to preserve the one institution, as it was mentioned, that is the cornerstone of democracy. We're going to believe that. We're going to have to show we believe it.
How much of a tax increase?
I don't know yet. I mean, I'm not, it's been hard enough for people to come to grips with saying the words. But now we're wet, and you can't get more wet. So, we're going to do what we need to do. And the fact of the matter is we know we're going to have to make cuts, and we're going to be making cuts. But we're not going to make cuts out of the classroom. There's a lot of services that Californians want. We have a lot of departments that provide services that if you put that next to a classroom education, pale in importance. So we're going to put those things on the table and say, let's eliminate these things because we can't afford them. The governor thought he'd try that with parks. That didn't work out too well. That lasted about an hour. But there are a lot of other things that we do around here that a lot of people don't even know about. We're going to have to stop doing them. We have to take some real hard choices. But savaging 10% of a school budget is not a hard choice. That's no choice at all. We're not going to make that choice.
Senator, so the governor's budget proposal, the 4.8 that we're talking about, can't happen.
Won't happen.
Can't happen without you.
No.
So what should school districts believe, count on?
Well, what they ought to count on is that this is going to be the fight of a lifetime. That we are not going to be going anywhere this summer. I've told everybody that wants to go to the Democratic convention, buy one of those, tape the little mother. What's the? Yeah, TiVo it. That's close as you're going to get. I don't know. I mean, Democrats in the 90s hung out until October, and it was an election year. We won, and we won seats. Because the public knows what needs to be done. They're waiting for the leaders to step up and do it. So we're going to do it. And if the governor wants to question our resolve, he can come and talk to every single individual. What school districts ought to prepare for is to make sure that everybody realizes that we are in this together. These are incredibly articulate people that have spoken today. I'm not talking about my colleagues. They're fine too. But who are you going to listen to? What they don't expect is some politician to come in and say these nice things. They say the words, we have to do the deed. And that's what we're going to do. Well, I think there are two things we have to consider. One is that, temporary is, we love sunsetting things around here. And we don't have the best record in people's minds, I guess, about the way they think we spend their money. So maybe temporary is better. We also may want to do more to allow local districts like this one to have more flexibility, more opportunities to go to their own parents and their own voters, to have the kinds of schools that we used to have before Prop 13. I mean, before Prop 13, a school district, the school board members would decide what kind of a budget they wanted to reflect the kind of students that they wanted to educate and how, and they set the tax rate. So everything is going to be looked at right now. My view is as long as we're going to be here, we may as well be thorough. We've got a lot of free time.
Specific areas that you want to look at for a tax?
Well, there aren't very many. Probably the one everybody likes the best is the sales tax because everybody pays it a little at a time. It doesn't come twice a year in the mail. And the other tax everybody loves to pay is the one somebody else is going to pay. We all love that one. But I think what we want to do is we want to say to ourselves, we are in this together. Now, do the poor suffer more than the rich if they have to pay a sales tax increase? Yeah, but I haven't met anybody yet who is struggling and has a family that does not want to get into the middle class. They don't want to be super rich. They want to be middle class. If they are already making tough decisions in their lives, their daily lives, they're going to make a little bit more tough decisions in order to help their children.
Do we have to raise for it to be enough?
Well, we're upside down by $7 billion. Now, I mean, I don't know if, and nobody trusts that number. No one even knows what $7 billion means. But what it means to me is if we can cut down and take $2 billion, $2.5 billion in cuts, the rest have to come in revenues. That much math I can do. Anything else? Last question.
What do you think about the governor's redistricting plan that he's touting out there?
Well, you know what? candidly, I wish he was spending more time doing what we're doing here today, telling Californians we got to get back to where we were, rather than making pretend that some redistricting is going to solve the problem. I'm disappointed. I'm just disappointed. Thank you.